Russia is bleeding, not slowly, not quietly. Every single month, 20,000 to 25,000 Russian soldiers are dying in Ukraine. Dead, not wounded, not missing, gone. That number should stop you. In the Soviet war in Afghanistan, 20,000 soldiers died over 10 years. Today, Russia loses that many in 1 month, and yet the war does not end. Factories run 24/7. Missiles keep flying, drones keep coming, power grids go dark, cities freeze. This is not a story about victory or defeat. It is a story about endurance, about how modern wars are no longer won by breakthroughs, but by who can absorb pain longer than the other side. If you want clear, fact-based analysis beyond slogans and headlines, stay with me. This matters more than you think. Because to understand where this war is going, we first need to understand what kind of war this has become, and that changes everything. This war is often described as a stalemate. That word is misleading, because something very specific is happening here. Russia is advancing, but barely. Since January 2024, Russian forces have taken about 5,000 square kilometers. That sounds large, until you realize it is less than 1% of Ukraine's territory, and the price for that movement is staggering. Total Russian casualties have reached 1 million, as many as 250,000 killed. This is not maneuver warfare. This is not blitzkrieg. This is a war of attrition, a system designed to convert human lives into marginal territorial gains. At the same time, missiles and drones strike Kyiv and other cities. Energy infrastructure is targeted. Electricity disappears. Heating fails. Winter becomes a weapon. So the real question is not who is advancing today. It is who can sustain this system tomorrow. To answer that, we need to look backward at how this war became structurally inevitable. This war did not become a grinder by accident. It became a grinder because its logic rewards grinding. When the battlefield hardens, speed stops mattering, and production starts mattering. That is why Russia pushes weapons output around the clock, 24/7, not as a slogan, as a survival strategy. And that is why Ukraine is forced into defense that is both heroic and exhausting, because defense in this kind of war is not one battle, it is a calendar. A month after month test of nerves, logistics, and national will. Then comes the mechanism that defines this era. Territory is not taken in leaps. It is taken in meters. And each meter is purchased with bodies. So when you hear 20,000 to 25,000 Russian soldiers dying in a single month, you are not hearing about a temporary spike. You are hearing the cost structure of the war itself. And once a war has a cost structure, it stops behaving like a crisis. It becomes a system. Now watch what happens when that system needs momentum. It manufactures a shock. Then the system delivers its first shock. Not on the battlefield alone, but across daily life. Missiles and drones hit Kyiv. Again and again. They spread outward. Dnipro, Zhytomyr, Zaporizhzhia, Kharkiv, Kherson. The targets are not symbolic, they are functional. Energy sites, critical infrastructure, electricity goes out, heating collapses, and as temperatures fall below freezing, cold becomes part of the war. Hundreds of thousands are left without power, not for hours, for days. This is not escalation by accident, it is escalation by design. When territorial gains stall, pressure shifts to civilians, because breaking a society can be faster than breaking an army. The United States calls it a dangerous and inexplicable escalation, but there is nothing inexplicable here. This is how attrition searches for leverage. If this kind of analysis helps you see beyond headlines, stay with me, because the real danger is not the strike itself, it is the logic behind it, and that logic goes deeper. What you are seeing is not chaos, it is structure, a war built on replacement. As soldiers die, new ones arrive. As missiles are fired, factories refill stockpiles. As cities lose power, systems are tested for resilience. This is why casualty numbers alone do not stop the war, because the system is not designed to feel them immediately. Russia converts scale into endurance, population, industry, time. Losing 20,000 to 25,000 soldiers a month is horrific. But in this model, it is treated as manageable, as long as production continues, as long as pressure does not collapse inward. And that is the hidden mechanism. Attrition wars do not aim for victory moments. They aim for exhaustion points. The moment when one side cannot replace what the system demands next. So strikes on energy infrastructure are not side operations. They are part of the same equation. Reduce warmth, reduce stability, reduce patience. This is not just military math, it is social math. And the danger is this: systems like this rarely stop themselves. They escalate until something breaks. Now watch carefully, because the next shock is not about infrastructure. It is about intensity. The second shock is not louder. It is faster. The tempo increases. Strikes come in waves. Missiles, drones, minimal pauses. This is pressure through repetition. While negotiations are discussed, the battlefield does not wait. Kyiv is hit as diplomacy stalls. Other regions follow, not to capture land, but to signal endurance. The message is simple: we can keep going. At the same time, the numbers keep climbing, casualties accumulate, territory barely moves. This is what intensity looks like in an attrition war, not a single dramatic turning point, but a sustained grinding surge designed to test limits. And here is the uncomfortable truth: as long as losses can be replaced, intensity can increase without resolution. That is why this phase feels endless, because it is meant to. The war accelerates not toward peace, but toward fatigue. And fatigue does not show first on maps, it shows up in lives. Which brings us to the part that matters most, not for governments, for people. This is where the war reaches you, not as a statistic, not as a map, but as a human experience. Imagine waking up in winter with no heat, no electricity, no certainty that it will come back tonight. You are not on the front line, but the war has found your home. This is what attrition does to civilians. It stretches fear across weeks, across seasons. When energy grids fail, daily life collapses quietly, hospitals strain, food spoils, homes turn cold, and the goal is not panic, it is erosion. To make endurance feel heavier than resistance. If you are watching this from far away, it is easy to think this is about territory or geopolitics. But for millions, this war is about staying warm, staying functional, staying human. If understanding this human cost matters to you, don't look away. Share this perspective, because wars like this survive on distance. And next we need to widen the lens, because this pressure does not stop at Ukraine's borders. What happens in Ukraine does not stay in Ukraine. Attrition wars radiate outward. When Russia absorbs losses of 20,000 to 25,000 soldiers a month and keeps fighting, every capital is forced to recalculate. This is why NATO calls Russia a long-term threat, not because it is winning fast, but because it is willing to pay endlessly. Weapons production running around the clock changes global supply chains. It tightens markets, it shifts priorities, it pulls attention and resources away from other crises. Energy attacks ripple beyond borders too. They test Europe's resilience. They remind policymakers how fragile modern infrastructure really is. And diplomatically, the signal is dangerous. If mass casualties do not force restraint, what does? This war becomes a reference point for future conflicts, for how much pain a state can absorb without stopping. That is the global impact, not panic, normalization, and once something is normalized, it spreads. So the question the world is quietly asking is this: How does a war like this end? There are only three ways this ends. None of them are clean. The first is the optimistic path. Pressure finally exceeds replacement. Losses outpace production. Endurance breaks, not suddenly, but internally. The second is the middle path, the most likely one. The war slows, but does not stop. Lower intensity, frozen lines, a conflict that never resolves, only pauses. And then there is the darkest path, escalation without restraint. More intensity, more civilian pressure, more normalization of mass death. In that scenario, 20,000 to 25,000 dead per month is not a warning. It is a precedent. Attrition wars do not end because someone is right. They end because systems fail. Economically, socially, politically, the future depends on which system breaks first. And here is the hard truth. The longer this continues, the more all three paths begin to converge. Which brings us to the final question. What are we supposed to learn from this? This war leaves us with one brutal insight. Modern power is no longer measured by speed. It is measured by tolerance for loss. When a state can lose 20,000 to 25,000 soldiers every month and still continue, the old assumptions collapse. This is why this conflict feels so disturbing, because it exposes a system where human life has been fully priced in, not ignored, accounted for. And that should unsettle you, because wars like this do not announce their endings. They fade into permanence, into background noise. If this analysis helped you see the war differently, don't let it end here. Share it, talk about it, because understanding is the first form of resistance against normalization. And in the next video, we will examine what happens when societies finally reach their breaking point. Subscribe, stay curious, and don't accept simple answers for complex wars.